Super Retro Kate here again. So what I've got going on today is I have an Indigo Nintendo GameCube that I purchased brand new in box, never been used, and I want to take this Indigo GameCube and turn it into an awesome GameCube. So I purchased it for like $260 off of eBay, brand new, unopened. But there's two things about it. One is it is the model that doesn't have a digital port on the back. So on the back I just have the regular AV, which doesn't let you use the component cables or any of the HDMI plug-and-play adapters. Another thing about it is it's Japanese, because the Japanese GameCubes were way more common. So like it's pretty easy to still get brand new ones in Japan, but USA ones aren't. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this other GameCube and use it kind of as a donor GameCube. So this is a US model with the digital port, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap the motherboard, and I'm going to put a Wasp custom in it and install a new fan. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just disassembling the US GameCube, and I'm not going to need the screws and stuff from this one, but I'll hold on to them for now. One of the other like big differences when doing this is there's a power circuit that is on the GameCubes that have a digital port that isn't on the GameCubes that don't have the digital port. So it's not as simple as just swapping the motherboards. It's also, you got to get the different power supply components. So that's kind of why I opted to just get a new GameCube instead of not a new GameCube. That's kind of why I opted getting a US GameCube as like a donor. Like this GameCube was cosmetically really messed up. Like the handle on the back was all broken, and all of the different panels and stuff are all scraped up. So I bought one like as cheaply as I could, hoping that, you know, the parts that matter, the motherboard and the power supply circuit and the controller ports and stuff, are all in good shape. So I'll find that out pretty quick here. So this one I'm not too worried about taking it apart. You know, I'm just doing it as fast as I can. I'm not really worried about which screw goes where, because I'm not going to use any of these. I'm not going to reuse any of these. But if you've never taken a GameCube apart, it's kind of funny. They're kind of built like a tank, where they have probably like 16 screws that just go around it, and you got to take them all off before you can get to the parts you want. And one of the reasons I wanted to get a US motherboard in here is when you use a drive replacement like a Wasp, it doesn't matter. Like, it'll be region free, so it doesn't matter if you have Japanese or a US motherboard. But if you want to manage your saves, it matters, because a Japanese GameCube can't see the save files on a US formatted memory card, and vice versa. So like if you have a Japanese motherboard and you're playing US games, the only way that you can manage those saves is by either using this homebrew program called GameCube Memory Card Manager, or by taking that memory card and sticking it in another GameCube that's USA, that has a USA revision motherboard. And there's also a way of soldering a couple points together and turning a Japanese motherboard into a US motherboard and vice versa. You'll see a lot of mods online where people have people have installed like a region switch, and they usually put it like on the fan or like the little vent section over down here. I tried doing that on a GameCube, on another GameCube I have. I was trying to just switch it from Japan to USA, but I was having a hard time actually getting the solder points to be set correctly. So I don't need any of this drive part. So this is all I really care about, is this motherboard. And you know, all the parts that I'm swapping look like they're in great condition. So that's really cool. So now that I've got the drive off, this is a little dusty. Now that I've got the drive off, I got to take the 6 screws off of the heat sink. Because that'll allow me to actually get the motherboard off of the chassis. And these screws, I think I may retain these screws, so I'm going to keep track of them. Another thing that's going to happen here is there's like a serial port connector on the bottom of these early GameCubes that didn't exist on the non-digital port versions. I'm not sure if it's all of them or a subset of them, but what you end up doing is you end up having to actually cut the bottom shell on the non-serial port ones to make room for, or to allow the serial port motherboard to go in there. And you'll see what I mean pretty soon here. So at this point I should be able to pry this motherboard up. So there we go, there's my motherboard. So then what I'm going to want to do is take these 2 screws out. And I have this guy, so I'm going to try to keep track of those. And then this is the actual like power section that exists on this model GameCube, but not that model GameCube. So I'm going to take this. I think I got to do these 4 little screws in here, because I don't want to retain this outer shell. I want to use the outer shell from the other one. And I'm hoping I can do that. I'm pretty sure I can, because I've done this exact thing with a Platinum GameCube, where I turned a Platinum GameCube into a GameCube with a digital port. Okay, so I have the power circuit here. So now I want to dismantle my brand new one and keep track of everything. So my brand new one, I'm doing this on paper towels here because I do not want to scrape this guy at all. It drives me nuts when I see people just like laying these on the floor and stuff. And I've already installed the new fan in this one. That's the wrong one. I've already installed the aftermarket fan in this one, and I used a a 3D printed mounting bracket from laserbear.net. There's this guy, Greg Collingle, who kind of specializes in 3D printing stuff for the retro gaming scene. And he did a replacement fan mount for the GameCube. So let's take this. Okay, I got 3 of the screws. I'm just going to put these over here. There's the 4th one. So then I'll put this over here. Make sure I don't scrape this stuff. Oh, another thing I have already done. Let me do this. Got this little magnetic tray that I bought at Comp USA, I think. Something like that. It was like Comp USA or something. That just holds all your screws. It's pretty nice. But something I did in this one already, because I've been kind of prepping this. I replaced the I don't know if you're really going to be able to see it, but I replaced the battery, the system battery, with a new battery and a battery holder. So in the future, if I have to replace the battery, I won't have to desolder anything. So I've already done that to this GameCube. Then this part I'm going to replace with one that has the digital port. So there's the difference there. So I'll just set that aside. And then this 3D printed fan mount, I'm going to take 2 screws out to get it out. You know, and hopefully this video helps someone who tries to do the same thing. I can see with all these solutions that take advantage of the digital port, this becoming a more common thing for people to do. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep these screws in order. So at this point I can take out, so this is a brand new fan on the 3D printed part. So this replaces this. So I've already got that ready to go. And I'm just going to set this stuff where it would be. Now I need to take these 2 front screws, or these 2 front. I'm taking out the little screws on the controller ports. They have these little like RF shields or something. I'm not sure exactly what they're for. But you gotta take them out before you disassemble your GameCube. And then I'm gonna try to keep track of all of these like 16 screws that go around the perimeter of it, so that I can try to get them back in the exact same places, so I can keep this thing as factory as possible while doing this mod to make it better. And this optical drive is actually brand new in this guy, which is kind of interesting. So the optical drive on this, you know, could be placed in a USA GameCube. And I don't know if it would be I don't know if the longevity of it, like if it would run for a long time because it's never been used, or if it would just naturally be worn down from, you know, the oil on it just drying out and stuff. Like the sled for the laser might just be dried out, regardless of it having any use over these years or not. But it's kind of cool that it's got a brand new one. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of screws in the GameCube. I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to film this because this is going to end up being a pretty long video. But I thought it'd be kind of interesting for people to see. And I don't like to use like powered screwdrivers for this type of stuff because I want to make sure I don't strip anything, and I don't try to tighten stuff too much because I mean this thing's got 16 screws around the base of it. Like, you don't need to get them super tight. It's kind of strength in numbers. Okay, so at this point, this whole part comes off. But then on this one, I'm going to try to think about this here. Because I don't think I actually need the lid switch anymore. Just not sure whether I want to use this one. Yeah, I'm going to use this one. So there's like 6 little screws here that hold the optical drive itself onto this bracket. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the optical drive off the bracket. So I'm going to set this to the side as best I can. Getting too much stuff here. Just going to set this to the side, and then I'm going to take my littler screwdriver and do these screws, undo these screws. Because the cool thing about the Wasp Custom is it's going to be plug and play right where the CD-ROM was. So if I take the CD-ROM off, I'll still use this metal, this tin or aluminum bracket under here. Not sure what it is, but I want to use the brand new one just so I retain a really clean look on this. The GameCube's a really awesome system because there's a lot of really good mainline Nintendo games that came out on it. And it has, like, in my opinion, probably the best controller for any system. I mean, it's not like a universally good controller, because like GameCube controller is pretty much garbage if you try to use it to play anything other than GameCube games. But for GameCube games, it's just awesome because they were all designed for it, and it's a super nice controller. I don't know, it just feels really good in the hands, you know. People are still playing Smash Brothers with them. So on the underside of the CD-ROM here, this is where people install Xeno mod chips, which is like a mod chip that allows the GameCube to read burnt discs. And that's kind of like an inexpensive way that people mod GameCubes, where you just solder to some points down here. But I'm going to replace the drive with an optical drive emulator, which is by far a better mod than using a Xeno. Okay, just making sure I keep everything straight here. So I'm going to set that there. Now this guy. So this is the old motherboard. This is the one I'm replacing. So what I would like to do here is I'm going to do those 6 screws on the heatsink again. You know, if I really would have been smart, I would have bought a brand new GameCube that had a digital port, because it would have been like, instead of $260 for the brand new GameCube, it would have been like $290. But then I would have still had a Japanese motherboard, and it's not a huge deal. You know, like I said before, dealing with the save managing and stuff. But I would rather just have it all out, you know, done right. So, kind of glad that I'm doing this motherboard swap. Okay, so this guy comes off just like that. So now this piece doesn't have any sort of power stuff underneath it. So I'm just going to set this off to the side. I might take these controller port covers that are on the front. I might want to swap them. I mean, the other ones look like they're really clean, but if I'm going to do all this other stuff, I'm just not sure how I pop them out without breaking them. I've never swapped them before. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. There's one. So it looks like you want to push them up and then kind of take your nail and just pull them out on the ends. And it seems like the little spring stays on pretty good. Okay, so that's that motherboard. So then I'm going to try, before I go back to the base, yeah, I got to be careful here. Before I go back to the base, I'm going to try swapping these. There's one. Okay. So I want to take this and go like that, and then pop it in, pop it in. Ooh, that was pretty easy. Take this one, pop it out. Take this one. Oh. Of course, the first one's going to be like super easy, and then the second one's just going to fight me. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So now I have brand new controller port covers on the digital port version. Okay, so let's put this motherboard back over here. Now let's take this guy. We want to put the power circuit in this guy, and we want to swap out this cover. So, and then when I put the motherboard in, I'm gonna have to cut out the serial port, which is the one kind of messy part of this. Oh, and I think I have to cut, I think I might have to cut some tin off of one of these too, if I remember right. I suppose I'll get there. Yeah, this might be a little more work than I remember. So let's take this guy up. Okay, so it looks like these are here when I didn't know if they would be there. So then this guy should also be here, or maybe not on this model. That's weird. So these are slightly different. I wonder if I have to cut that. Oop, oop. Trying to think why that would be. That's there for the Game Boy player to latch into, I think. Or it's just there for the heck of it. Yeah, I think that'd be for the Game Boy player, which isn't a huge deal to me. It must not be a huge deal if this one didn't have one. Let me flip this over once. Yeah, it must not be a big deal. So I want to take, whoop. Okay, I want to take this, and there's 4 screws. And what's kind of funny about this is these non-digital port ones, even though they don't have this power circuit, they still have all the mounts. So they didn't change the plastic mold, but they changed how they did power to consolidate everything and make it easier to manufacture. So that's kind of funny, but we're fortunate that they did that, because that allows us to do this. So that piece just fits right in there. Then I'm going to take this PCB and put it down in here. And then I'm going to try to get these 4 screws in here. Oh. Which I don't remember being very difficult. I'm just like threading each of them about halfway, and then I'm going to do a second pass, make sure everything's seated in there properly. Because these 4 screws are what hold this piece down. But then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut out a hole for the serial port. Because what you'll see is on this non-digital port one, there's the hole on the bottom right where it doesn't exist on the new shell. So I'm gonna get my pocket knife and I'm just gonna cut it out. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so now I have my pocket knife. I'm going to try to get it in the right location. So I'm just going to line up these screws. And then what I really need is like a marker or something. Wonder if I do this, if I can make enough of a divot. And that's assuming I should be straight up and down. And this part isn't going to be seen by people, so it's not a big deal if you make the hole too big. It is kind of funny though that I do this, because this is like, you know, taking a brand new system and cutting into it. And I'm trying to remember exactly how I did this last time. I thought I had like an easy way of doing this. And you want to make sure you don't cut yourself or break the plastic. I can see the plastic is starting to kind of have a little mark. Oop. You know, I may have just cut out left or right before from the other port. I mean, that wouldn't be a terrible idea, but I don't know that that will do it. Okay, so there's this isn't going to be the prettiest thing, but no one will see it, so so then I'm going to take this part and I'm just going to extend this out. Ooh. You just don't want to break anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my cutters. Maybe this is what maybe I used these before. Okay, well, I have that disconnected from the rest of the plastic. This is probably the most difficult part. Just making the digital, or just making the serial port. Because ultimately it'll go on like this. And right now, you can't get through here. So, I need to go this way more. And I'm trying not to put a hole in my table too. What's the best way to do this? I'm sure like a Dremel would be the best way to do this. I don't have a Dremel. I've never used one. If this was in an area where it would be visible, I probably just wouldn't even do this mod. Okay, I'm getting closer. Trying not to take too much though. So it's kind of spidering out on me. There we go. Yeah, this part isn't going to be too pretty, but that's what's kind of funny. I just do this. I just kind of taught myself. Like the first time I converted one of these non-digital port ones, I didn't know if I actually could or not. So there's not really stuff online about this. Let's see here. Am I getting close yet? Because ideally you want to get to where the stuff is just flush. That would be in there. Trying to see if I'm bumping up against stuff. I'm actually not sure. It's pretty close. Yeah, I must be rubbing a little bit. So I'm going to take a little more off. Oop, don't knock all the screws around. It's not a huge deal, but I'm gonna try. I want to get all the screws in where I took them out. So I'm going to go over a little more with this. Okay, I got that out. Let's get this piece out. I'm gonna get this ugly piece out. I think that might be enough. So let's take this and put it on here. Oh, I think that is. Let's see underneath here. Whoop. See, I don't like that. That's definitely in there. I am missing a piece though. So before the motherboard goes in though, we got to put another piece in. So before the motherboard goes in, we want to put this piece on. Because this piece will act as a shield between the motherboard and the power stuff. So let's see here. See, and I think this little bump, a couple of these little bumps are preventing this. So I still have more shaving to do here. Let's take my knife and take this piece off so we get a lower profile on this. This piece I might just try to push down. There we go. Now let's see if this will go on. See, I can tell by how it is that it's pushing on that. So I'm gonna have to cut that off. I just need to get it off, get it out of there. Is that better? It's hard to tell. So let's try it again. It's definitely a time-consuming process. I wasn't planning on doing this tonight, but ooh, that fit good. Okay, so now these two screws in the middle hold it in. Oh. So the important thing that we did here was we got the power circuit. We got this cable coming up. And then we have the serial port cut out. So now this guy will just pop in. And then we've got our serial port. There we go. So then we've got our serial port and our LAN port, both available. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the screws for the heatsink back on to fasten the heatsink to the motherboard and the motherboard to this RF shield. So I'm just going to use my little screwdriver and I'm going to alternate. That one went in good. Oh. That one's not going in, so I'm going to move on to the next one. That one went in good, so I'm going to go to the lower right. See if that one. That one went in good. Let's go upper right. Nope. Upper right. Ooh, don't want to drop this in there. That'll be another game, trying to get it out. I'm trying to remember what I have to cut. I think I'm going to have to cut something else, but I don't remember what it is and why. I feel like it's something back here. Like maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'll just swap the part if I can. Thinking before I might have just bought a motherboard, not a whole new GameCube. So I might not have had a part to swap. Okay, and this screw does not want to go in, so I'm going to try a different screw. I'm just going to steal one from this one, because these are the only 6 that are this size. Because it looks like it's threaded correctly and lined up. Let's see here. There, it's going now. I don't know why this one's going in a little harder though. But it's in, so now I'm going to go back to the first couple, make sure they're still tight. Okay. Now what I want to do is take this guy. Okay, so this is the problem right here. This doesn't fit over that. So let's look at the one, yeah. The one that came with it does that. So I'm actually probably going to just use this piece. So I'm going to undo the screws from this one. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to take these screws, stick them over here. Oop. Okay. Then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean off this paper towel. It's got some plastic from from cutting that bottom. And I'm just going to flip it over. Okay, and I don't care about this optical drive, so I'm going to undo these screws. Lots of screws in the GameCube. I don't remember if I need a lid switch. I don't think I use a lid switch for anything with this wasp. I'm not even sure how you'd mount it. I don't think you can mount it with the wasp custom. You'll see what I mean when I get closer to being done. I should kind of preface this with there's a new optical drive emulator for the GameCube coming out called GC Loader. It's by Citrus 3000 PSI or Dan Kuntz, and that one's supposed to be better than using a wasp in that it's going to support SD cards larger than 64 gigs, and it's going to support all the audio streaming games, which there's only a couple of them, so it's not really a big deal to me. Let's see how good a shape this is in. That looks good. Good enough to put on here for sure. So on this piece, we'll just go on the GameCube. Now what I want to do is I'm not going to put the optical drive in there. I'm going to start putting all these screws back in here. So I'm going to start with the front controller ports. But the thing with the new optical drive emulator for the GameCube is you've got to solder it to the underside of this connector, of this optical drive connector. And I think it's a lot cooler that this that the Wasp Custom is plug and play. I kind of wonder why they didn't come up with a plug and play solution for the GC loader. So right now a bunch of people are selling off their Wasps in anticipation of the GC loader coming out. But I actually think I'm just gonna double down on the Wasp. I actually bought another one because people are actually selling them. So now I have 2 of these Wasp Customs. Okay, so I'm gonna start putting in all these perimeter screws. So right now I have the brand new shell with the power circuit and the motherboard from the old system, or from the old system that had the digital port, and also had the serial port, which the serial port was pretty much worthless until a few weeks ago. Now a memory card, now an SD card adapter has come out for the serial port, which allows you to boot games from Swiss off of it. So instead of having an SD gecko like in your front memory card slot, kind of hanging out, you know, actually sticking out of the system a fair ways, you're able to hide it down where that SATA port is, or down where that serial port is. So that's a pretty cool thing that they've done. And Swiss completely supports it. So I have one of those too, so I'll show you that here. I actually haven't tried it yet. It just showed up a couple days ago. There's quite a few people manufacturing them right now, and that GC loader is supposed to support it. And my Wasp should support it too, because once you flash the Wasp with Swiss, I mean, once you're in Swiss is the thing that actually supports reading an SD card in the serial port at this point. So if you can do that, then your stuff's going to support it. So I'm going to keep going here. You know, and honestly, as far as replacing the fan, at this point, once you've taken out the optical drive, you've probably removed a lot of the heat in the system. You've definitely removed a lot of the weight. So it's really not as big of a deal to have a big fan once you've done this. So I'm doing the 3 screws on the side before I put the power switch and the aftermarket fan on. Not sure how long this video has been. I'm sure it's getting long here, but hopefully if you're watching this, you're really into this and you think it's worth it. I'm actually pretty happy with how this is coming together right now. All these screws are going in just perfect and it looks good. Looks all brand new and stock. So now I'm going to take this fan, and this fan goes in just like that. There we go. Then I run the cable through there and up here. And this extra bit of the cable isn't going to matter at all with the Wasp Custom, where it would be kind of annoying with an optical drive. You'd have to worry about it like getting in the way and stuff. So then I have 2 screws to tighten to hold this fan on. Okay, so that's a majority of the screws. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go grab some gaffer's tape, and I think that's it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'll show you what I like to do with the gaffer's tape. And this is completely unnecessary. This is kind of like a belt and suspenders type of deal. So this is the Wasp Custom right here. So this is an optical drive emulator that was originally for the Wii, that's been modified to work in the GameCube. And Badass Consoles has taken the optical drive plug from a GameCube, from a GameCube's optical drive, hopefully one that was already dead, and he's soldered it onto this PCB, this custom PCB, where he's taken all of the parts of the Wasp and he's made it so it's just plug and play. So all you got to do is put your memory card in and put it right there, and that will completely replace the optical drive and everything. So that's super cool. So the thing that I like to do to make it a little nicer is I'll just use gaff tape, and I'll just put down a little base in here. Because when you open the lid, you will see this inside section. And doing what I'm doing here doesn't affect any of the cooling or anything. I'm just going to put a little black so then all you'll really see is a nice covered area. I'm not going to get too crazy with this. Okay, so we take that. I think that's good. We have our vents exposed. We didn't obstruct any vents doing that. It's very important. So then, this is what it looks like from the front. This is the side, the fan, this is the back, this is the power switch. And then what I'm gonna do is take my Wasp and my Wasp Custom, put it right on here. So that'll replace my optical drive. Then the SD card will go right in here. Then I'm gonna take my new rear bay, which isn't perfect, but it's pretty close. It's kind of funny, both of the ones that I have marks right here, right at this top part, which is kind of funny. So that goes on just like that. So now I've got a digital port GameCube. Then on the front, then I'm going to turn it around, and on the front, oh, actually I'm going to have to do this before I turn it around. But I'm going to take my brand new controller port. And you got to remember, a lot of this stuff was from the Japanese one, and a lot of the GameCube, pretty much all of the GameCube's components are interchangeable between the Japanese and the US ones, so it's not a big deal. So replace the battery with a brand new battery holder, install the Wasp Custom, installed a brand new fan with a 3D printed mount, swapped the motherboard from a Japanese motherboard with only the regular AV port. This one's the regular AV port. Installed a US motherboard with the digital AV port. And then I cut out the bottom to get myself the serial port. And I'll kind of show you with it like this. Let's put my pieces back in here. I also have a broadband adapter that I'm going to put in here, but I'll put this on for now to show you. Oop. So it's actually kind of funny. This part is still exactly the same, but on the pieces for one that had it, they are actually labeled serial port. I'm almost tempted to swap the piece, but I don't think I'm gonna, just because this one's a little scraped up. And then this is where the let's see, this is where, I'm not sure if the Game Boy player plugged into this, or I think the Game Boy player plugs into this. And I'm not sure, maybe if you have a 56K modem it goes into that, but I've never actually seen one of those. They're pretty irrelevant because everyone wants the broadband adapter. And then traditionally, when you put the tops on systems like the Dreamcast and the GameCube, you want to do it with the lid up for the lid switch, because that's how they naturally are. But since I don't have a lid switch anymore, I can just put it on closed, and that fit perfectly. So now at this point, I just have the 4 screws on the bottom, which are the security screws. So then at this point, I have a immaculate brand new GameCube, Indigo GameCube, with the digital port and all those stuff. When I open it up, I just have my little Wasp Custom in there. So not sure if I'm gonna swap out the jewel or not. There's this guy on Etsy, I can't think of his name right now, but he makes custom jewels. It's the Luigi's Mansion one I have that I really love. The other thing I'll do is I'll put the broadband adapter in this guy. So I'm gonna pause the video and I'll be right back. Before I hook it up and show you, I forgot to take out the serial port to SD adapter. So this is what this looks like. So this is just a little PCB that you put in this port. So this side face inside, this side face outside. So all you do is take this and go like that. And what this allows you to do is, when this GameCube boots up, it'll boot to the Wasp Custom, and then the Wasp Custom will boot into Swiss, and you can play the games that are on the SD card in the Wasp Custom, and with nearly 100% compatibility. But the other thing that you can do when you have this is the Wasp Custom is limited to a file size of 64 gigabytes. So if you have one of these, you could have another micro SD card in here, and you could have more games on it. And then as long as those games stream through the SATA port fast enough, you can play them through the serial port. So it's kind of a way of getting more games and homebrew on here without having something sticking out of controller port 2. So I'm going to hook up this system and just kind of show you what it's like and make sure that it works and everything. Okay, so I have the GameCube hooked up. I'm going to power it on and hopefully everything works. So we want stereo sound. Screen position, I don't know what that does. Let's just leave that at 0. So that booted up Swiss off of my my Wasp Custom. Let's see if I'm on the most current version here. So this Wiki Fusion folder, yeah, there's an update. So I'm gonna flash this guy. I also want to figure out where I go to do the date and time settings. So this is what this is doing, is this is taking me from version 4.51 of Swiss that was flashed onto the Wiki Fusion or the Wasp, I'm not sure. This is going to take me to version 6.8 whatever of what's actually flashed onto the Wasp. Flashing complete. So now I'm going to cycle power. What is going on here? So I hit the power button. It's like it's not latching down. So that's not good. It's like I gotta hold it down. So something's going on with my power button here. So I'm gonna have to take this baby apart again. Okay, so I took it apart and I adjusted how a board was mounted on the 3D printed fan mount. And now I've got it. Okay, well I thought I had it. Well, that sucks. I don't know if I'm, it's like the power switch doesn't have enough travel. Okay, I think I got it working now. What I actually think the problem was Collingall's 3D printed part didn't seem to get flush enough to give the power button enough space. So I'm pretty sure that that's why it wasn't working. So let's see, it's 11. Let me go check what date it is. I think it's the 24th. It's the 25th, so I want to set it 11/25 of 2019, and the time is going to be 19. Let's see. Let's double check what the time is. 7:48 p.m. 7:48. And finish. And then since this is a US one, I can view my memory cards. So here's all my save games on memory card 1. And then when I turn it on, the reason that it does this as though it doesn't find a game is because I don't have that lid switch in there anymore. So it thinks that the lid's open every time you boot. And then if you just go to gameplay, and we can boot Swiss. And now, up here, we're version 685. It's 11/25, 7:48 p.m. And then there are the games. And then if we go over here, I wonder, WASP, SP2, so this is where it would detect if I had an SD card in that serial port. It would find it right here, which I haven't put one in there yet, but I'm gonna have to try that. Oh. Let's go back to Wiki Fusion. We can fire up a game. Let's fire up Mario Kart. And we're going to want it to do progressive mode. It should ask me, yep. Then I can actually go into LAN mode since I have the Ethernet adapter. I have the gigabit Ethernet adapter hooked up, but I don't have it hooked up to Ethernet, so. So that's my new GameCube up and running with a Wasp custom. So this is Super Retro Kid. Thanks for watching.